Emily walked into the bustling department store, her mind occupied with errands, unaware that her dignity was about to be shattered. Accused of a crime she didn't commit, she faced a humiliation that would spark outrage and change lives forever. Emily Taylor, a devoted single mother and beloved teacher, lived a life anchored in integrity and kindness. Her days were filled with shaping young minds and caring for her children, leaving little room for herself. But one ordinary Saturday morning, during a quick visit to a department store, her world took an unexpected turn. Accused of shoplifting without cause, she found herself at the center of a public humiliation that left her shaken, confused, and grappling with the weight of societal prejudice. Little did she know, this moment of injustice would ignite a journey she never imagined. Emily stood frozen in disbelief as the store security guard's words echoed through the air, loud enough to draw stares from other customers. "Empty your bag." The accusation stung, cutting through her pride like a blade. She felt the blood drain from her face as a crowd gathered, whispering and pointing. Her protests of innocence were drowned out by the guard's commanding tone. Her hands trembled as she opened her purse, revealing nothing but her wallet, keys, and a small toy for her son. Despite the absence of any stolen item, the guard smirked, dismissing her explanations as if they were lies. The humiliation mounted as people pulled out their phones, recording the spectacle. Emily felt like an actor in a play she had never auditioned for. The manager arrived, his expression apathetic. Without a single apology, he waved her away, muttering, "Mistakes happen." But the damage had already been done. Emily left the store with her head bowed, the weight of judgment pressing heavily on her shoulders. She felt the sting of humiliation but also a simmering anger that began to rise within her. That evening, Emily scrolled through social media and saw her own face staring back at her in a viral video. The hashtags #falseaccusation and #justiceforEmily trended, sparking conversations but also unwarranted criticism. Strangers debated her character online, and the quiet life she had cultivated unraveled in front of millions. Her children noticed her tears, and Emily resolved to fight, not just for herself, but for them too. The morning after the incident, Emily awoke to find her phone buzzing incessantly. Messages poured in, some supportive, others vile. Her email inbox overflowed with inquiries from local reporters seeking interviews and opinion pieces. Her once peaceful life was now consumed by chaos, as the video of her humiliation continued to spread like wildfire. At school, her children faced whispers and side glances. "Isn't that their mom?" someone murmured, unaware that the kids could hear. Emily felt guilt seep into her heart as her children tried to defend her, their small voices faltering under the weight of grown-up gossip. The world seemed to conspire against her family, and she felt powerless to shield them. The backlash was not limited to strangers. At work, her principal called her in for a meeting. "This situation is affecting the school's reputation," he said, his tone cold and professional. Emily felt a knot form in her stomach as she was handed a letter placing her on indefinite leave. Her colleagues, whom she had considered friends, avoided her gaze in the hallways. Financial strain soon followed. Without her teaching salary, Emily struggled to make ends meet. Bills piled up, and the little luxuries she had provided for her kids, art classes, field trips, became impossible to afford. She pawned her wedding ring, a bittersweet reminder of the life she had built alone after her husband's passing. The humiliation she felt in the pawn shop mirrored the incident at the store, a cruel reminder of how easily she had been stripped of her dignity. As days turned into weeks, Emily found herself slipping into despair. Her children's smiles became her only anchor in a storm that threatened to drown her. She began to question her worth, her strength, and her future. But deep within her, a spark of resilience refused to be extinguished. The injustice she faced ignited a determination to reclaim her life, not just for herself but for every person who had ever been wronged without reason. Emily sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the eviction notice that had arrived earlier that morning. The weight of her world crashing down was suffocating, but amidst the despair, she felt an ember of anger beginning to glow. She thought of her children, their trust in her unwavering. This couldn't be the end of their story. That evening, she reached out to a local lawyer renowned for championing civil rights. Amanda Hayes, a fiery advocate with a reputation for dismantling injustice, listened intently to Emily's story. What they did wasn't just humiliating, it was illegal, Amanda said, her voice firm. We have a case. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt a glimmer of hope. The decision to take legal action wasn't met with unanimous support. Emily's family worried about the emotional toll, and some even urged her to drop the matter. Why make things harder for yourself, they asked. But Emily knew this wasn't just about her. It was about setting an example for her children and ensuring no one else endured the same indignity. As word of her lawsuit spread, allies began to emerge. A group of former customers who had also faced discrimination at the store reached out, offering their testimonies. Community leaders and activists rallied around her, organizing marches and raising awareness about the systemic issues at play. Emily, once hesitant to be the center of attention, found her voice growing stronger with each passing day. The store, however, fought back fiercely. Their legal team released a statement, accusing Emily of seeking attention and fabricating the story for financial gain. Social media became a battlefield, with supporters and detractors clashing in heated debates. Emily shielded her children from the ugliness but couldn't escape the sting of betrayal as people questioned her integrity. Despite the challenges, Emily pressed on. Every night, she prepared for the courtroom battles ahead, poring over legal documents and practicing her testimony. She felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, but it also became her armor. With Amanda by her side and a community rallying behind her, Emily was no longer fighting just for herself, she was fighting for justice. Emily stepped into the courtroom, her heart pounding like a drum. The walls, cold and unyielding, seemed to echo her fear. Yet, as she clutched her lawyer Amanda's reassuring hand, she felt a surge of determination. This was her moment to confront the giant that had tried to crush her spirit. The store's legal team came prepared, presenting a polished and aggressive defense. They painted Emily as opportunistic, someone leveraging a fabricated story for monetary gain. The accusations were sharp, each word cutting deep. The corporate lawyer, a man with a commanding presence, emphasized the company's spotless record, undermining Emily's claims as isolated and exaggerated. Amanda, however, countered with relentless precision. She presented the testimonies of other victims, their experiences eerily similar to Emily's. The courtroom watched in stunned silence as video evidence surfaced, showing the security guards' repeated discriminatory actions. The once confident defense faltered, cracks appearing in their carefully constructed narrative. During cross-examination, the security guard struggled to justify his actions. Amanda's questions cornered him, exposing inconsistencies and bias. The guard's stammering responses painted a picture of systemic prejudice, not a single incident. Emily watched as the tide slowly began to turn, her hope growing with each passing moment. The media closely followed the case, amplifying its impact. Reporters lined the courtroom steps, broadcasting updates to a captivated audience. Emily's story became a symbol of resilience, sparking debates about discrimination and corporate accountability nationwide. Despite the relentless scrutiny, Emily stood firm, her resolve unwavering. As the trial progressed, Emily's strength and vulnerability shone through. She recounted her humiliation in vivid detail, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to break through. Her words, raw and unfiltered, moved many in the courtroom to tears. The battle was far from over, but Emily had proven one thing: she would not be silenced. Amanda arrived in court carrying a folder that seemed to hum with importance. Emily noticed the subtle confidence in her lawyer's stride, sparking a flicker of hope amidst her anxious thoughts. What was in that file could alter everything. Inside the folder lay damning evidence, a pattern of complaints filed against the store and the security guard. Victims with similar experiences had come forward, their stories echoing Emily's own. Detailed records exposed a history of negligence on the part of the store's management. It wasn't just Emily, it was a systemic issue hiding in plain sight. Amanda presented the evidence methodically, ensuring no detail was overlooked. Emails between the store's management and former employees revealed troubling discussions about maintaining appearances, which often translated to profiling certain customers. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom as Amanda unveiled the incriminating messages. The store's legal team scrambled to refute the claims, their once confident demeanor replaced by visible unease. Witness testimonies supported Amanda's evidence, including one from a former store employee who had resigned in protest. Her testimony highlighted the toxic culture within the store, shining a light on the discrimination Emily had faced. Emily felt a surge of vindication as Amanda delivered her closing argument for the day. Her lawyer's words reverberated in the room, a rallying cry for accountability. The tide of the trial had shifted. No longer was Emily an isolated victim, she was now the voice of many silenced by prejudice. Outside the courtroom, reporters eagerly shared the latest developments. Emily's story ignited conversations across social media, with hashtags like #JusticeForEmily and #EndDiscrimination trending nationwide. The evidence had not just transformed the trial but had also sparked a movement. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as the trial resumed. All eyes were on the store's defense team, visibly shaken after the revelations of the previous day. Emily sat quietly, her hands gripping the edge of the table, a mixture of hope and apprehension swirling within her. The store's lead attorney stood, attempting to discredit the evidence. They argued that the incidents were isolated and not reflective of a broader issue. Yet, their rebuttals came across as hollow against the mountain of documentation and testimonies Amanda had presented. Amanda countered effortlessly, her tone steady and resolute. She dismantled the defense's arguments with precision, emphasizing the patterns of misconduct evident in the evidence. Her compelling narrative painted a vivid picture of systemic injustice, impossible for the jury to ignore. The pivotal moment arrived when Amanda called the former head of security as a witness. His testimony was devastating for the defense. He admitted that concerns about the guard's behavior had been raised multiple times but were dismissed by upper management. This revelation confirmed what many suspected: discrimination wasn't an accident, it was negligence. Emily watched as the jury's expressions shifted. Some nodded subtly, others frowned deeply, but all seemed to grasp the weight of the testimony. For the first time since the ordeal began, Emily felt the possibility of justice. As the session concluded for the day, Amanda turned to Emily with a rare smile. "We've made them listen," she said, her words filling Emily with a quiet sense of triumph. The turning point wasn't just legal, it was personal. Emily was no longer merely a victim, she was reclaiming her voice. As news of the trial's progress spread, Emily became a symbol of resilience. Her story resonated far beyond the courtroom, igniting discussions about discrimination and justice in workplaces and public spaces. Social media was flooded with hashtags like #JusticeForEmily and #EqualityMatters. Local advocacy groups organized rallies outside the courthouse, their chants calling for accountability. "This isn't just about one woman," a speaker declared passionately. "This is about all of us who have ever faced prejudice and stayed silent. Emily is fighting for everyone." Media outlets, both local and national, began covering the trial extensively. Interviews with experts highlighted the systemic flaws in corporate policies. Former employees of the store shared similar experiences anonymously, corroborating the claims Amanda had built into her case. The courtroom was no longer the only battleground, the court of public opinion was equally charged. Emily watched these developments with mixed emotions. While the support was overwhelming, the exposure left her feeling vulnerable. She feared judgment not just for what had happened but for the scrutiny it brought to her personal life. Yet, her resolve grew as she saw how her fight inspired others to confront their own struggles. Ravi, a kind neighbor who had always offered quiet encouragement, stepped up to help. "You're carrying more than your own burden, Emily," he said one evening, dropping off a homemade casserole. "But you're stronger for it. And so are we." With each passing day, the community's support transformed Emily's battle into a movement. The rallies grew larger, the voices louder, and the call for change undeniable. Emily, once invisible in her quiet life, was now a beacon of hope for countless others. As the trial continued, Amanda dug deeper into the store's history, uncovering startling evidence. She discovered reports of similar incidents involving the same security guard, each swept under the rug by store management. This pattern painted a grim picture of systemic negligence and prejudice. Amanda introduced these findings in court, presenting a detailed timeline of past complaints. "This is not an isolated event," she stated firmly. "It's a symptom of a larger issue within the company's culture, a failure to address bias and uphold fairness." Among the witnesses was Sarah, a former employee of the store who had experienced racial discrimination during her time there. Initially hesitant, she was encouraged by the public support Emily had garnered. "I couldn't stay silent anymore," Sarah testified. "What happened to Emily happened to me, and it could happen to anyone." The court also heard from Jacob, a young intern who had worked closely with the security guard. Jacob's testimony revealed internal memos discouraging staff from escalating complaints against management. "We were told to focus on protecting the company's reputation, no matter the cost," he said, his voice shaking. Emily sat in awe of these revelations, realizing how much courage it took for others to come forward. Amanda reassured her. "Your strength inspired them, Emily. Change starts with one voice, and yours echoed louder than you imagined." Meanwhile, a prominent civil rights organization extended their support, offering additional legal resources. "This case has national implications," their representative said during a press conference. "Emily's fight is our fight." The evidence and testimonies shifted the trial's tone. What began as a battle for Emily's dignity had grown into a reckoning for the company, forcing them to confront a legacy of systemic failure. As the trial unfolded, the public's interest in Emily's story surged. Social media exploded with hashtags supporting her, such as #JusticeForEmily and #EndBiasNow. Thousands of comments poured in, expressing outrage and solidarity. "This isn't just Emily's fight, it's all of ours," one viral tweet proclaimed. The store faced relentless backlash. Protesters gathered outside, holding signs demanding accountability. Local news stations aired segments highlighting the company's history of discriminatory practices. Pressure mounted as more employees and customers came forward with their own troubling experiences. Corporate executives attempted damage control. In a public statement, they claimed, "We value diversity and inclusion," but the words rang hollow in the face of mounting evidence. Their attempt to shift focus only fueled public anger, as many labeled the response insincere and performative. Inside the courtroom, Amanda leveraged the growing public support. She presented petitions with thousands of signatures demanding justice for Emily. "This case is no longer about one person," she argued. "It's about systemic accountability and the voices of countless others who've been silenced." The company's legal team, previously confident, struggled to counter the wave of evidence and public sentiment. Executives who were once dismissive found themselves in heated boardroom discussions, debating how to salvage their brand's reputation. Emily, though overwhelmed by the attention, felt a renewed sense of purpose. "This isn't just about me anymore," she said to Amanda during a break. "It's about making sure no one else has to endure this." The turning point came when a prominent figure, known for their advocacy against racial injustice, publicly endorsed Emily's case. Their involvement drew national media coverage, transforming the trial into a defining moment for corporate accountability. The store's leadership faced an ultimatum: adapt or crumble under the weight of public scrutiny. But as the final days of the trial approached, one question remained: would justice truly be served? The trial had reached its most critical point. Emily's legal team unveiled a shocking piece of evidence: security footage from the day of the incident. The video showed the security guard's unjust treatment of Emily, followed by moments of laughter as they recounted the event to colleagues. Amanda emphasized this evidence with precision. This video isn't just about humiliation, it's about a culture of impunity that has persisted too long. The truth is now undeniable. The courtroom fell silent. The store's legal team scrambled for a rebuttal but found none. The judge watched intently, their expression shifting from neutrality to visible disapproval. Amanda, sensing the moment, pressed further. She presented additional documentation. Complaints from other customers and employees painted a damning portrait of the company's disregard for fair treatment. Emily's case, once seen as isolated, was now part of a larger pattern. This wasn't a mistake, Amanda argued. This was systemic negligence. The security guard, once defiant, now faltered. Under cross-examination, they admitted to biases that influenced their actions. "I didn't mean for it to escalate like this," they mumbled, but the damage was done. Public reactions amplified. News outlets published the evidence, and support for Emily swelled. "This changes everything," one anchor declared during a live broadcast. The store's leadership faced mounting pressure as their credibility unraveled. Emily sat quietly, absorbing the magnitude of what had just transpired. Amanda leaned over and whispered, "This is the turning point we needed. Justice is within reach." Emily nodded, though the weight of the journey was still heavy on her shoulders. The trial wasn't over, but the tide had undeniably turned. Would the company attempt a settlement, or would they face the full weight of their reckoning in court? The answer lay in the hands of the jury, and time was running out. The jury filed back into the courtroom, their faces somber yet resolute. Emily's heart raced as she clenched her hands tightly, sitting between Amanda and her supportive friends. All eyes were fixed on the jury foreperson, who stood to deliver the decision that would either vindicate Emily or leave her fight for justice unfinished. "We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of discrimination and negligence," the foreperson declared. The room erupted. Supporters outside the courtroom cheered. Justice had prevailed. Emily felt a wave of relief wash over her, tears streaming down her face. Amanda spoke to the media outside the courthouse, her voice firm yet optimistic. "This is more than a victory for Emily. It's a call to action for every institution to rethink how they treat people. Discrimination has no place in our society." The store released a statement accepting the verdict. They pledged to implement mandatory diversity training, overhaul security policies, and create an internal review board to prevent future incidents. Skeptics remained wary, but it was a step forward. Emily returned home that evening to an outpouring of support online. Messages flooded in, praising her courage. Some shared their own stories of discrimination, thanking her for giving them hope. But amidst the celebration, Emily reflected on the cost of her journey, her reputation, her livelihood, and the emotional toll. A settlement offer soon followed, including monetary compensation and public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Emily accepted, not for herself but for the precedent it set. Her victory became a symbol of accountability, a reminder that individuals could hold even the most powerful systems accountable. The immediate aftermath of the verdict was both empowering and exhausting. While Emily began to rebuild her life, she knew the fight wasn't truly over. The world needed more change, and she resolved to be a part of it. In the weeks following the trial, Emily was approached by community leaders, activists, and advocacy organizations. They all wanted to hear her story and collaborate to drive meaningful change. Though still recovering from the ordeal, Emily recognized an opportunity to transform her pain into purpose. Her first step was joining a local anti-discrimination organization as a speaker. She shared her experience in classrooms, town halls, and community centers, urging others to stand against injustice. Her voice, once trembling from fear, now resonated with conviction. She quickly became a sought-after advocate, her message reaching far beyond her hometown. Emily spearheaded a campaign aimed at reforming corporate policies across industries. Partnering with legal experts and social activists, she developed a framework for businesses to foster inclusive environments and avoid discriminatory practices. Her work inspired companies to implement proactive measures, demonstrating that accountability and profit could coexist. At a national conference, Emily delivered a keynote speech that brought the audience to its feet. "We've all faced moments where we felt powerless," she said, her voice unwavering. "But change doesn't happen from silence. It happens when we rise together, speak out, and refuse to accept the status quo." Her advocacy extended to supporting individuals with similar experiences. Emily created a support network where victims of discrimination could connect, share their stories, and receive legal and emotional support. The initiative grew rapidly, becoming a beacon of hope for countless people. As Emily's efforts gained traction, her life took on new meaning. She was no longer just a victim of injustice, she had become a force for transformation. Each step forward reminded her that even the darkest moments could ignite the brightest lights. Emily's advocacy began to create waves of change far beyond her initial reach. Schools started incorporating her story into their curriculum, using it as a tool to teach empathy and the importance of standing up against injustice. Her narrative was a living example of resilience, capturing hearts and inspiring action. Corporations began to reevaluate their internal policies, adopting her framework to ensure accountability and fairness. CEOs publicly acknowledged the importance of fostering inclusive environments. Even the store where the incident had occurred made sweeping changes, becoming a model for anti-discrimination practices in the retail industry. Her impact reached governmental levels. Local lawmakers, inspired by Emily's story, drafted new policies to penalize discriminatory practices and support victims. When the bill was passed, it was named after her, a symbol of the power of one person to effect systemic transformation. As Emily's efforts grew, so did her connections. She formed partnerships with national organizations, amplifying her voice and message. Every platform she spoke on reinforced her core belief: injustice thrives in silence, but courage and unity can dismantle it. Despite her growing influence, Emily remained deeply connected to her roots. She continued to host workshops in her community and engaged directly with those who had experienced similar struggles. Her humility and genuine care only strengthened the bond between her and those she inspired. In the end, Emily's journey was about far more than overcoming a single moment of injustice. It was about rewriting the narrative, ensuring that no one else would have to endure what she did. Her fight left an indelible mark, proving that even a single voice, when lifted with purpose, can echo through generations. Emily's story is not just one of personal redemption but a testament to the human spirit's capacity for resilience and transformation. What began as an act of humiliation became the foundation for a movement that altered countless lives. She turned pain into purpose, showing that even in the darkest times, a single act of courage can illuminate the path forward. Through her unwavering determination, Emily demonstrated that no matter how insurmountable the odds may seem, change is possible when guided by empathy and conviction. Her fight was not merely for justice but for a future where such injustices would no longer occur. It was a fight for everyone. If Emily's story moved you, let it inspire your own journey. Stand up against prejudice, and be a voice for those who cannot speak for themselves. Share this story, leave a comment, and subscribe for more tales of resilience and transformation that remind us of the power we hold to shape a better world.